So I got invited to speak at the Recovery Collective, which is this group that has been put together by another recovery coach to help those go through the whole recovery process. And it's like a monthly subscription that you get into this group. Links down below if you want to check it out. Highly recommend it. It's always great to get extra support during this whole journey. But every single month they have like a different panelist come in and speak. And this month, the month of May 2021, it was me. And yesterday, or 2 days ago, I went through my whole like hour-long presentation on the topic of food flexibility. And this is one of my favorite topics because this is something I struggled with so much in my life. I was so rigid with my food, having a really strong orthorexic background. That was like one of the biggest drivers of my eating disorder. Was this idea of like I wanted to be healthy, and my way of achieving this health was through very rigid, trendy, kind of insane diets. Yes, I would say a raw vegan diet is extreme, and I would say it is trendy. I would say a keto diet is trendy, and it is extreme. And so I went through all of these crazy diets, and I mean, you guys know my story. Found out that that is not the way to health, and that that was just spiraling. What did I just say? Spiraling me down this really just negative path, and was worsening my health. Funny enough, and it turns out, you guys, you need like all macronutrients. Just FYI, in case you're curious, there's a reason why they all exist. But it also just really had a negative effect on my mental health. And so I love this topic, and I wanted to just run through with you guys here on my channel. I think there was like 6 reasons that I went through of like why food flexibility is something to really reach for and why it is important. Now, if you want to hear the whole presentation, like I said, you can go and you can join the collective. It's just a couple bucks a month, and you can see all the past, people who have gone into the collective and spoke. I think like Kate Noel, why am I blank her name? Mia. You know who I'm talking about. Other really big recovery person. She's a part of that group. Meg is a part of that group. So a lot of other really cool people that are in that group that are sharing. Anyways, I'm going to just run through some of the reasons that I thought were really important. So I put up a bunch of slides, and I sort of went through them, and the first slide was like this hieroglyphic of all these, Egyptians eating this huge feast. The next slide was a picture of like Jesus and the disciples, eating the Last Supper. Next slide was a picture of all these people gathering around in the Victoria area at a ball, eating food. Or it was a drawing, obviously they didn't have cameras back then. But then I sort of went on, and I showed pictures of people in love eating together. I showed pictures of kids snacking together. I showed pictures of families eating together, all of this. And I put up a slide that pretty much said this. Eating together is a quintessential part of the human experience. And I think that this is really important to understand because if we look at, say, the blue zones, which if you're not familiar with the blue zones, that is these groups of people around the world who have the longest living people in the world. So the centenarians, they're living to like 105, 113 years old. They're super healthy. They have lower rates of cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, all of that. And if we look at sort of like what they all have in common, so what is making them like a healthy civilization, is community. If we look at like the people in Sardinia, Italy, a lot of those people, they grew up together. Their mamas were pregnant together. They went to school together. They worked together, and they're like 98 years old, and they're still hanging out with each other every day, having dinners, having lunches, all of that. And so we see that community has been one of the things that has really improved their health. I study public health in university. That's what I got my bachelor's of science in. And one of the things that we talk a lot about in public health is the social determinants of health. And mind you, I got into public health because I was super, how do I put this? I was wanting the answers to health. So I like pretty much just wanted to learn more about like what I could and could not eat that was going to make me live to 120 years old, right? But what was fascinating to me sitting in these classes was that we rarely, if ever, talked about nutrition and exercise. And you may be thinking like, what? Well, that's what's wrong with public health. And I'm like, no, not really. Because we focus on the social determinants of health. And the social determinants of health are these things that like determine how healthy a person will be. And it was just really shocking to me to find that the nutrition and exercise, while it was on there, yes, it is important, it's kind of at the bottom. And one of the first things, again, is community. You also have like, you know, a good job, feeling you have autonomy at work, you know, access to clean water, clean air, access to nature, all of that, like that's also in there as well. But one of the things is community. So again, eating is one of the most quintessential parts of being human. It's what we do. We break bread together. Since the dawn of time, this is what we've done. We look at the blue zones, we look at, you know, what public health says, and we see that community is one of the most important aspects of health. So I'm going to tie this in now to food flexibility, if you haven't already guessed. So what happens when we have diet culture? And diet culture spews out all of these things that we should and shouldn't eat. You should eat avocados, quinoa, and kale. You shouldn't eat bacon, eggs, and cheese. So what that does now is that has you go, well, I can't go to this birthday party and eat birthday cake anymore because I can't have that. Or I'm going to bring my own Tupperware food and think that it's the same, but it's not. Just a little pro tip there. It's not. It affects the mood, guys. It really hurts relationships as well. There's something important and special about literally breaking bread with other people. Now, allergies aside, obviously, if you're gluten-free, bring your own loaf. But if you're not, and if you can eat bread, don't be bringing the gluten-free bread when you have no allergy to it. Anyways, tangent. So where was I here? Dang it. See, this is when I wish I could like rewind on my camera so I could see where I was talking about. So now what happens is you have all of these things, these, you know, fun Friday nights out with friends, you have birthday parties, you have weddings, you have all these celebrations, you have family dinners, you have all these things. All of a sudden you go, I can't have that. And so what you do is one of the worst things you could ever do for your health. Can you guess what that is? You socially isolate. You socially isolate. One of the worst things you can do for your health. Loneliness is an epidemic in our country that has serious implications to one's health. Again, this is what we studied in public health. I wrote plans for high schools on how to deal with this epidemic of loneliness. Because suicide rates, depression, anxiety, bipolar, all these things increase when you are lonely. When you feel like you are a part of that community, you feel like you belong, you feel like you have that support, you have good relationships, that increases our health. So this is one of the things that I really learned throughout my orthorexic recovery is that health is way more than nutrition. And we can't just look at it like, if I eat X, Y, and Z, then I'm going to be super healthy. Yes, of course, nutrition plays a role. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's not the only role. And there's so many other things that are so important. I would rather, honestly, someone eat a quote unquote unhealthy diet. Let's just take a standard American diet. I would rather them eat that, but have a flourishing social group than eat, say, organic, non-GMO, triple sprouted wheat bread with avocado and broccoli sprouts on top. But socially isolates, it feels lonely, doesn't have a core group, doesn't have that community because they're fearful of food. So I would way rather someone, for their own health and well-being, I would way rather them eat more of the processed food diet, but have that sense of community. This is why it's important to not look at it from just that nutritional perspective, because there's a lot more going on here. And your energy, your emotions, that plays into how healthy you will be. So this is my number one reason why to have food flexibility, because it allows you to be able to be with other people, to break bread with them, to sit down at the family dinner table, instead of doing what I did, which was run away from my mother doing family time, which literally broke our relationship apart. Now, to end this video, because I'm just going to go through this one point, and maybe I'll make other videos that go through the other reasons why you want food flexibility. To end this video, I want to share a story. I grew up part-time in Costa Rica, and I grew up in a very religious household, and so we would go to church every Sunday, and we became good friends with this family. And one day after church, they invited us to go to their house. So we drove like an hour and a half into the mountains of like Costa Rica on this really, really, really bumpy road, and we get to their house, which was pretty much a shack. And you know, it was mud floors, and they had all their animals and garden and all of that, and very much a tin shack, you know, roof. And well, we got to their house, and while we were there, they're like, well, we want to make you dinner. And so the dad, he went and he killed, right then and there, his chicken. Killed his chicken. Plucked it, got it all prepared and ready, gave it to the mama. Mama goes, gets a huge big pot of boiling water, and makes a big chicken soup. Here comes dinner time. Here I am, I'm vegan. I have all these rules of what I can and cannot eat, right? And she sits down. We all sit down. She hands me a bowl of soup, and I go, oh no, thank you. And the look on her face, she was like, what? And I was like, oh no, well, I don't eat meat. And she looked at me like, you are the rudest person in the world. And looking back at this now, I go, oh my gosh, I regret so much. Like, here they are. They have hardly anything. Just a couple animals and a small little vegetable garden. And they killed one of their animals for us. For us. And I said no. I said no. Because I was too high and pious about like what I should and shouldn't eat. This is why you want food flexibility, guys. Because you don't want to be like me, rejecting people's love, rejecting their kindness when they offer you food. Now, how do you think that dinner went? It was awkward. It was awkward as heck, because here they are, and they're all like eating this dinner in front of me, and I'm just sitting there, empty plate. And of course, she offered me some like crackers, but I was gluten-free as well. So I'm going to end it there by just saying that my biggest regret is not having those experiences with people around the dinner table more often. And I see now that that is super important. So that is my number one reason to have food flexibility. I hope that this was really beneficial. If it was, make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to be sharing with you the other things, the other reasons why it's really important to have food flexibility. So you'll only know if you hit the subscribe button, and if you hit the bell notification, click all, and then you'll be subscribed and alerted when I come out with that next video. All right, have a great day, guys.